This podcast is brought to you by PLI, the Practicing Law Institute, providing resources to legal professionals and the law librarian community. For more information, go to pli.edu/librarian.
Hi, I'm Karen Osterly. Thanks for listening. As a practicing law librarian myself, I've been working in the legal information profession for 36 years, currently with PLI's Library Relations team. For this episode, I was delighted to have the chance to speak with Vicenç Feliú and hear about his path through the Marine Corps, the FBI, teaching high school, attending law school under his nephew's aegis, and his move from law to law librarianship. Along the way, we discovered a mutual interest in vintage automobiles circa 1925 and the Peter Sellers movie Being There circa 1979. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Good morning, Vicenç. It's lovely to see you. Thank you for joining us for this podcast episode. I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit about yourself now, your position at the school and the name of the school and what you do and all of that.
So my name is Vicenç Feliú. I am the Associate Dean for Library Services, the Director of the Intellectual Property Concentration, and Professor of Law here at NSU Florida Shepherd Broad College of Law. Here I also teach intellectual property and copyright law. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. And the full name of the school?
The full name of the school is the Shepherd Broad College of Law at Nova Southeastern University, Florida.
Thank you. And do you know how we met? Do you remember?
Yes, we met a couple of years ago at SEAL in Richmond.
Right. I had a chance to come down and represent PLI at the Southeastern American Association of Law Librarians. But I got to tell you, the fact that the Southeast stretches all the way from Virginia to Texas is very fun to me. I used to work for a company called Southwestern Company that was in Nashville, Tennessee. And people would say, that's not the Southwest. I would say, well, when it was founded in 1868, it was the Southwest.
Right.
So how did you get to this role? I mean, you've been at other schools, so if you want to do a quick history, feel free.
Sure. So I started out at LSU in Baton Rouge 20 years ago. And I was the Foreign Comparative and International Law Librarian there for a while. And then I eventually ended up being the Assistant Director for Public Services. I was there for about 4 years, and then I left there to go to the University of the District of Columbia, where I was the director of the law library and a professor of law. Started out as an assistant professor of law, and I taught advanced legal research, and I also taught international human rights at UDC. I was there for about 2.5 years. And then I moved on to the Charles Whittier School of Law at Villanova University in Pennsylvania. And there I was the Associate Dean for Library Services, and I taught intellectual property, copyright, and an advanced intellectual property class. And then from there I came here. So I spent about 5 years at Villanova, and I've been here for about 8.5 years now.
So you've been up and down the East Coast, because Villanova is not far from here. We're based in New York. Practicing Law Institute is. But I used to take care of UDC. I was their Matthew Bender rep, and I was in DC from 1989 to 1996. Were you there then?
From 2009 to 2012.
Okay. All right. So we did not cross paths, but I love DC. I really enjoyed it.
I lived in the area. I lived in Northern Virginia.
Me too.
And I love Virginia.
Yeah, me too. And so now you're in Florida. And how is that these days?
I love Florida.
Good.
I think Florida is great. It's a different environment. I like it because it's really very multicultural. It's international. I am a Catalan speaker. I am Catalan. And I am a Catalan speaker. That's my mother tongue. And, I've lived in the U.S. going on 54 years, and it's always been very hard for me to find the Catalan speakers, and I don't find that as hard here in Florida. So it's a big bonus for me.
That must be very rewarding. I mean, Florida seems to me, the way you're describing it, a little like New Orleans, where everything is in one place. Everything has come together.
Love New Orleans too.
Me too. Yeah, I lived there for a little while in 1980, so that's been a while. So what is your interest in law librarianship, and how did you become a law librarian?
That's a very simple question with a long and complicated answer. So I came to law librarianship real early in my law school career, and I came to law school very, very late in my life. I had 3 other careers before I came to law school. After graduating college, I became a Marine officer. I was a Marine officer for several years. I left the Marine Corps as a major, and I joined the FBI, and I was a special agent in the FBI at the Washington Metropolitan Field Office in D.C. I did that for a handful of years, and then I became a high school teacher. I taught Spanish and French in Northern Virginia, and did that for a handful of years. And after having done that for a handful of years, I was talking to one of my nephews, and I was, exploring other avenues for my future, because I did not see myself as a high school teacher for any longer. I think that being a high school teacher is the hardest job I've ever done, even harder than being a Marine or an FBI agent.
Yeah.
And so I was speaking to one of my nephews who happened to be going to law school at the Franklin Pierce Law Center in New Hampshire at the time. And, he said to me, ever since I can remember, I remember you talking about wanting to go to law school, and you've never really done anything about it. And while that wasn't really true, there were a couple of times that I had explored the idea of going to law school. Other things got in the way. And so he invited me to, go up to New Hampshire, spend a handful of days up in Franklin Pierce and see what that was like. And I went up there, went to his classes, hung around the school, did the visit to the school, an extensive visit to the school. And I really, really loved it. I thought it was a great school, and I was really intrigued by the idea of going to law school. So I applied to one law school. I got accepted to one law school, and I went to that law school. So I ended up going to law school with my nephew. He was a 3L when I was a 1L.
That's very cool.
Yeah. But that doesn't get me to law librarianship, right? My faculty advisor at Franklin Pierce was Judy Geyer. And I don't know if you ever met Judy, but Judy was the longtime library director at Franklin Pierce. Lovely person. I really love Judy. She was a mentor and a great guide to me. And so I remember being a 1L and, having my faculty advisor meeting with her and saying to her, Judy, I really like law school. I really enjoy this, but I don't know about the practice of law. I don't know about that.
Right.
And so she said, have you ever considered being a law librarian? I said, what's that? And she said, well, how about you finish your 1L year and then come back and we'll talk again. So I finished my 1L year. I came back and I said, yeah, I'm still not interested in the practice of law. How about this law librarianship thing that you were talking about? And so she created an internship for me that I did at the law library at the school. And I got a chance to, it was not like being a student worker, but it was a chance to be in the library and actually work with the librarians and, actually do a little bit of cataloging, do a little bit of reference, do a little bit of everything, right? So it was like a library school in a semester. And I thought it was great. And so from there, I applied to the University of Washington. I got accepted to that. And I graduated from the program a year after I graduated from law school. And that's how I became a law librarian.
That's a wonderful tale. That is a wonderful path. That's the first time I've ever heard of anybody who found their career through their nephew and their mentor. That is very, very cool. Really interesting. You said something earlier about public services, and I think it was at one of the other schools, but I learned last week that public services means not the technical services part, but everything else having to do with the patrons. And so let me ask, I presume you're open to the alumni and of course the students and faculty. Are you also open to the bench and the bar and the public?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is a private school, and pretty much it is a private library. However, we don't treat it as such, so that we open our doors to the general public, the bench, the bar, the alums, the students, the faculty. We do have a couple of periods of time during the year, during final exams, when we close to everybody in the school except for the law students. But other than that, we're open to the public. We don't. I've been in other libraries where, for example, when I was going to library school at the University of Washington, that program is a law librarianship program. So it's not just library school. It's a lot of, the practical work is actually done in the law library, and that law library had a very active public patron population. That's the most active library that I've ever seen, that I've ever worked at. In that regard, but here we get a handful of public patrons. It's not very common, but it does happen.
Well, I think that's wonderful when a school decides to be open to the public, because lots of them up north are not. Even if you're an alumni for some of your schools, it's hard to get in. You have to schedule and all of that. So that's wonderful that you guys serve all the populations.
Yeah, it's that thing about access to information, right? I mean, that's one of the things that's the bedrock of librarianship, not just law librarianship. The bedrock of librarianship is that access to information, having the public be educated. That's an important thing.
Exactly.
Foundation of democracy.
It's true. And you have done a lot of speaking about artificial intelligence. And so I'd like to ask you about that. How is your library handling AI in legal research? And then if you want to talk separately, how are you handling it in teaching, and how are you handling it in other areas?
So I am very fortunate that I have a very young library. I am the old man and happy to be so. So we have a really face-forward point of view towards the application of AI, and not just in legal research, but in everything we do. I think that AI is a fantastic tool, and like every tool, it can be misused, right? So we are exploring the use of AI in almost everything we do. I mean, I'm talking about simple things like cataloging. How do we implement the use of AI into cataloging to make that task less onerous and less complicated? How do we use it when we are managing the collection? How do we use it when we're dealing with the public? How do we use, for example, right now we've been tasked to provide a series of videos for the prospective students about the library. So we've gone about, we've created scripts for those videos, worked through the AI to better those scripts, to make them a little bit more professional. And then how are we going to use AI to actually deliver, a presentation in a video presentation to make it, a little bit jazzy for the incoming students, right? So I'm very fortunate to have a good group of librarians who are very forward in their thinking and not afraid to look at a tool and figure out how to use it.
Wonderful.
So that's a great thing. And in my teaching, I really embrace the idea because and I've been writing about AI for a while. I've been thinking about this even before ChatGPT was a thing.
Right.
And, because I'm in the copyright world, so AI has been a thing. And AI is not yesterday's, thing that happened yesterday. AI has been around for
a long time.
At least 50. When I first started thinking about AI in the outside of the copyright field, but in the pedagogical arena, the first thing that I was seeing was this fear from my colleagues about, well, how do we keep students from using it? How do we keep students from cheating? How do we keep this from overrunning the wire, right? And my perspective is how do we teach the students to use it the right way, to use it correctly, to be responsible and ethical users of a tool rather than banning the tool? So I began real early. Once ChatGPT became available, creating exercises for the use of AI in class. And it began very simply with, I have my students create a written exercise once or twice a week, depending on the module that we're working through. And, I very quickly realized that this is going to be really easy for them to go to AI and ask a question and get an answer that may or may not necessarily be right. So why don't I require that they use AI, right? So here's the question. You have to give me this deliverable, and you have to do a certain number of things. What prompt did you use? What did the AI tell you? How did you modify that prompt? And then analyze what the AI told you and tell me what the correct answer is, or what the best answer is. And so that way, they can't hide the fact that they're using AI because they're supposed to use it.
Right.
I see the prompts, and so I began there, and then I'm using it now as a simulation, where the AI can play the part of a client asking questions. So it's become a pretty standard tool in my classroom.
That's wonderful.
Thank you.
And how about in research? How are you guys using AI in research?
I got to tell you, I worry a little about AI in research because AI is not intelligent, right? It is a prediction machine, right? And so AI will look at a prompt and it will try to predict from that prompt what the next series of words is. There's no thinking really going on. And the biggest problem that we have with research is that AI, if you tell AI, find me this, AI will find you this, right? And when this doesn't exist, it will create it for you, right? So, we had a thing right here in Florida a couple of weeks ago, a young attorney up in Orlando, I think it was, who turned in a brief to the judge. And out of the 8 citations that this attorney turned into the judge, 7 were made up, right? And he was smart enough to admit, not double down. And he said, yeah, I did this with AI, but that's the danger of AI in research. I think that we think of AI as a research tool, and while it can be very helpful to get you into the right path or into the right area to think about things, I think that it's not, because it's not thinking, because it's not doing what you and I would do or any other attorney would do when we're doing research. We're looking at a structure. We know what the structure looks like. We know the things that fit within the structure, and then we can start finding within that structure the areas that we need to explore, right?
Right.
AI is just predicting. And sometimes, people call them hallucinations. That's the word that everybody uses. I like to call them predictions based on non-reality. Right? Because the thing doesn't hallucinate.
Yeah, I like that.
Right?
Yep.
So yeah. So I don't teach advanced legal research. My librarians do, because I encourage them to be in the classroom. Usually what happens is the law library director teaches an advanced legal research class, but then that forecloses the idea of the other librarians being able to be in the classroom, so they have to struggle for that. So I don't do that to give my librarians the opportunity to get the experience of being in the classroom, because if they want to move up the ladder, they have to be teaching. And so we have the librarians here that are teaching ALR, they are very, very conscious of my philosophy about AI and research, and they have worked together to create a standard plan of how to teach the students, hey, this AI is not a research tool. This is a tool that's going to help you get within the structure that you need to be, but you cannot rely on it to find things for you. You're the one that needs to find things. And if it finds something for you, you need to double check it 3 times, double, triple.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right? So that's my one worry.
No, thank you. That's very helpful. No, I'm surprised that this young attorney in Florida didn't know by now that you have to check this stuff.
It's not a new problem. It's happened before, and
it has happened, but it's happened with great publicity surrounding
Yes.
it, and you would think he would know.
Right.
Came from AI,
Yes.
but it's funny, AI. Okay, there's an F period, so often there's a 3D after that, and F, and there's a number after that. AI is like, I could do that,
Right.
Right. But I like that. I captured that. Predictions based on non-reality. No, but I very much appreciate how you've separated that out. Using AI in teaching, using AI in cataloging, but it's not a research tool.
Right.
I think, and you had said you're teaching students to be ethical and responsible in their use of AI, and that's exactly what you guys are doing.
Right. No, it's very important.
Ethics
here. A client hires you as an attorney because you have a knowledge, you have a background, you have something that the client doesn't have, and they are paying that fee to get that expertise, right? And you are using AI to do your work for you. That's the unauthorized practice of law.
Right.
That's the thing that I constantly hammer on my students, because I give them these questions, right? And I say, okay, we're doing the simulation where the AI is playing the part of the client, right? And it's not that, I can have one AI playing the part of the client, the other AI playing the part of the attorney. No, you're supposed to be playing the part of the attorney, right? And then coming up with solutions for these questions that the AI is raising. Great. But when you're giving these solutions, when you're giving me this response to the problem, right? And I will let you use AI to work through getting you in the right area of the problem, but you have to know, and you have to analyze that, and you have to tell me these things are right, these things are not right? Because like every tools are dangerous. I love tools. I'm a tool guy. Remember that old Tim Allen show? Right?
Yes.
I'm just like Tim Allen. I hurt myself with tools. I love them, but I hurt myself with them. They're dangerous, right?
Well, tools are something. It's all about the right tool. My father was a veterinary pathologist, and my husband was a mechanic, and they were aligned. You got to have the right tool. It's all about having the right tool. Right. And so, who was it that says, if I had a fulcrum, I could move the earth?
Was there Archimedes?
I'm not sure. It might have been Newton, might have been Galileo. Anyway, we'll look that up later. But yes, it's all about the right tool.
I thought it was one of the Greeks, but I could be completely confused.
I'll check. I'm intrigued by your focus on IP and how you came up through intellectual property and copyright. So when you were in law school, did you already have that bent? Did you already have that interest?
Yeah. So Franklin Pierce is an IP school. That the emphasis, the reason that my nephew was going to that IP school was because he had a background in chemistry, and he was, he's a patent attorney. He's a patent attorney in Atlanta now. So I had an interest in IP before I came to law school. Not for the science part, because, no, right? But my interest was because of art and music, and I'm a frustrated musician. I come from a very musical family. My father, who also was an attorney, but he was actually, all he wanted to be was a musician. He was actually a very talented musician. I grew up in this musical family, and my father had bands, and I have cousins who were recording artists, and so I grew up in that environment, and I thought that that's what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, the gods gave me zero talent.
Well, musical talent.
Zero musical talent. The gods did not touch me with that gift. And so, so I had this, my life, I've been very involved with music, and, so I had that in the background. And so that drew me towards the idea of copyright. And that's why, part of the decision to go to Franklin Pierce was because it was an IP school. And if I had to end up practicing law, I would have liked to have been doing something in the copyright world.
Probably so. Well, that is interesting. My undergrad degree is in philosophy, and this is before I went to business school. I didn't go to law school yet. But we had a book. Glenn Kessler was a favorite philosophy professor, and he taught a book called Gödel, Escher, and Bach. And it was about how music and mathematics and writing all hit the same part of the brain. and work sort of in concert. And so I'm interested in what you're talking about music. I mean, I'm a math person. So what do you see, going back to AI for a second, what do you see as the future of AI in law schools?
Not just law schools, but academia in general. AI is going to be a big part of academia, and AI will continue to evolve. I don't know how soon. I have good friends who are very much in the field who think that this is imminent and is going to happen very soon. I'm not that optimistic. I think it's going to take longer, but it will. There will be one point in which it will actually be intelligent, in which it will actually think, and that's going to be a game changer, paradigm shift, right? And so, in the world of education, in legal education is very conservative. I don't mean politically conservative. I mean conservative in the sense of we've done things this way,
Right.
all the way back to Christopher Columbus, and we're going to continue to do the same thing forever. And I think that change is coming a lot sooner than that academia expects it. And so it's going to change, the way that we're going to be working with the students, the way that we're going to be presenting materials to the students, the way that we're going to be assessing the students' capabilities, right?
Right.
And to me, one of the things that I think that we got to get into is assessing the capabilities of using AI effectively. It's going to be a big change in academia. So we just had we put together a team to go down to a competition in Miami.
Yes, and you guys won.
Yes, we came in third, but I got to say I was very happy with that because team number one and team number two, they were working with the lab from University of Miami, and so I'm thinking we came number one. So those children over there, they had, and I say the word children with all the love in my heart, they had a lot of opportunities to prepare and get ready for the competition. Our students, our children, they came in with about 2 weeks in which a handful of my colleagues here and we worked with them very closely for just 2 weeks, and we got them, and they came in third, and I was very happy with that result. I saw them as doing a tremendous job. The point here is that this competition was all about, hey, how are we going to engineer prompts? How are we going to work with the systems? How are we going to do this in the legal world to make AI an effective tool? And that's the kind of thing that we in legal education and in academia in general are going to have to be thinking about. How do we work with these tools? How do we teach the students how to use the tools effectively, ethically, and it will be a game changer. It really will be.
Right. I agree.
A little emotional.
No, it's important. It's important, and it's a passion for you. So using that phrasing, tools, teaching students to use tools effectively and efficiently, are there other tools that you've created? What are the other tools that you've created that you want to share?
Oof. Going back to the very beginning when I went to LSU from the University of Washington, I remember I was all about knowledge bases back then. And I'm still all about knowledge bases. I think knowledge bases are incredibly important. Right. But back then, there were really not a lot of tools that were, you could get off the shelf. Like right now, we have this thing called Gimlet that we use as a knowledge base, and there's thousands of different tools that you can use as a knowledge base that are very effective. But back then, not so much. Not for librarian work, not for reference work. Right. So I'm sure that you've seen this, right? Back in the day when we kept files, paper files, and then everything was supposed to be cross-referenced. Here's a trade secret. One of the things that was really interesting about working for the FBI was that J. Edgar Hoover worked as an intern at the Library of Congress, and he set up the FBI filing system based on the whole concept of access and information that the Library of Congress was using, right?
Wow.
So I remember, and this is, the early mid 90s, the FBI had, thousands of drawers full of 3x5 cards, and they were cross-referenced, and it was a thing of beauty in paper, right? So I remember getting to LSU and seeing their system and saying, we need to do this electronically, because searching, yes, there are systems and blah blah blah, but if we can do it electronically, this would be so much better than anything else. And so I got a hold of a tool. It was called Tracks, and it was a tool that was used by IT to keep track of their ticket system, right? When they have a job open, whatever. And so I altered that tool to use as a knowledge base for the reference thing. I'm sure they're not using that tool anymore, because there's much better things out there in the world than that. But I always like to tell a little story. There was a professor at LSU, Robert Pascal. Robert Pascal was an old-fashioned. He had been a Navy officer in World War II. He graduated from LSU, had gone straight into teaching at LSU, got off to World War II, came back from World War II, and went back into teaching at LSU. And he was there in 2005 when I got there. Okay?
Wow.
Robert Pascal passed away, I believe, at the age of 105.
God bless him.
He was a sweet guy. I love. Now, other people would tell you that he was a cast iron bastard. Excuse the Anglo-Saxon, but I loved him. He was a great guy and a sweet person, and he was he was a great mentor to me as well. And I remember one day he came to the reference desk and he asked me, and he said, "Vicenç, I know that," and said that lawyers are the priests of the law. I need you to find that citation for me and give me a. So, this is, I had to go into the Pandex and the code and whatever. I eventually found the citation. It was Opia, not Justinian. And I found the citation. I got it for him, and I gave it to him. And I gave it to him in Latin, gave him the translation in English and all that. But I put this in my little system, right? And about 2 weeks later, he comes back to the desk, and I'm sitting there minding my business, and he says, Vicenç, Justinian's once said, and so I'm in the system while he's doing this, right? So, priest of the law, can you find that? I said, yes, Pandex, section 1, number 1, and here's the quote, and he was totally impressed. But it was the knowledge base, right? Right. So those tools are essential. And that was one of those things. The other one that I really feel very proud of was the civil law of mine, and I did not do that by myself. That was a team effort. But I worked with the Center for Civil Law Studies in Louisiana back in 2008 to put the digest of 1808-09, and that is a thing of beauty. That's still there. You can still find that. So I'm very proud of that.
Wonderful. So when you have your BS, you have your JD. Did you take the patent exam?
I am not a science person. I am not allowed to take the patent exam. I have an LLM in IT, technology and commerce, that I got also from Frank and Pierce, and I also have my MLIS from the University of Washington.
Right.
But no, I am not allowed to take the patent bar. And
because your undergrad was not in a hard science.
Because my undergrad was not in a science, and I have a BA in linguistics. Yeah, that was what when I figured out that because my original major in college was music, but I figured out that I had no talent, and so I had to go to plan B.
Yeah, exactly. And linguistics is important.
Yeah, and so, but that's the thing that most people assume, that if you're into IP, that you have that you have a background in science, and that's the thing that I tell my students, and that's not necessarily so. It's not a thing.
Right.
You can do almost everything in IP except for prosecuting a patent. Right. You can even litigate a patent without a background in science, right? So,
right. You just can't prosecute it.
Prosecute a patent. Yeah.
So you don't have PLI where you are now, but I think you've had it at some of those other schools, like Villanova has it. So how have you used PLI in the past?
PLI is a tremendous tool, right? And again, it's one of those things, and it's a real shame that a lot of times the students really are not very aware how to use PLI, right? I think it's more the professors and the practitioners that understand PLI better. But I think it's a great tool for the students. When I had it at Villanova, one of the things that we emphasized was the use of PLI through the advanced legal research classes, right?
Good.
Because, the thing is that students fall into that pit, right? That they get used to one thing, and they use that one thing.
Right.
And they think that every single answer in the universe is in that one thing.
And it's not.
And, and it's not. And so there are many, many, many different tools. We're going to be tool time again. We're going to be talking about tools again. There are many, many different tools out there that are not, they're because you're only using the one thing, you're denying yourself the ability to really be an effective researcher, litigator, practitioner,
Right.
And so, and I was very lucky. At Franklin Pierce, I was taught legal research by Barry Shanks. And I don't know if you met him or not. He's retired now, but for many years. And he was very much a proponent of, in our legal research class, we were exposed to every single thing. I was exposed to PLI when I was a law student, right? And I was exposed to all of those other things that because it usually has two flavors, right? And you have A or B, and a group of students go with A, and the other group goes with B, and they don't do anything else beyond that. So I was very lucky to have an advanced legal research professor that was that way. And then I went off to the program at the University of Washington, which Barry Shanks was a graduate of the University of Washington. And so I had the great fortune of being taught by Mary Hotchkiss at the University of Washington, being taught how to teach advanced legal research to students, right? And again, she taught me PLI all over again, right? So, and not just PLI, but everything else. Right. And it wasn't just like, okay, fall in the hole and stay in the hole.
What are some of the most important learnings that you've pulled from being a Marine, from being with the FBI, from being a librarian, from being an attorney that you would like to share? Could be life learnings, could be work learnings.
I said before that being a high school teacher was the hardest job I ever had. But I got to tell you something. For me, what I really learned as a high school teacher was that I'm really an educator at heart. And yes, high school was hard because, I taught Spanish and French. They were not required classes. And yet in the Virginia system, there's 2 degrees, two high school degrees in the Virginia system. And so the most prestigious degree, of course, requires that you take a certain number of foreign units in foreign languages. So you ended up getting almost everybody trying to cycle through the foreign languages because almost everybody wants to get that quote unquote prestigious degree. Yeah. And so, you end up with a classroom with 35, 40 kids, right? And you're putting out fires, and you are, keeping one from, harming the other, and
maintaining order and decorum.
Maintaining good order and discipline, and I thought maintaining good order and discipline in the Marine Corps was hard. That was nothing. That was nothing, right? So at the moment, I really wasn't feeling it, but I have realized later, and I'm going to say Facebook, right? And that people make fun of Facebook because only old people like me use Facebook anymore, but that's okay. But I got on Facebook pretty early on, the early 2000s, when you still only could get on if you had an EU address. You couldn't get on with a .com address, right? And pretty early on, I found some of my former students. Because I had just, it wasn't that far away from having been a high school teacher.
Right.
And in the last 20 years, I've watched these children grow up into responsible adults, human beings who are doctors, lawyers, Navy officers,
adults,
literally adults, functioning adults with children who are becoming functioning adults. And I, in the 20 years that I've been doing the law school thing, that I've been teaching law students, which is a completely different thing. Because you have, and especially for me, I've never taught a required class, right? I've never taught torts or Civ Pro or the Gods Forgive con law, right?
Right.
I was taught electives, and So that is a different classroom. And it's so enjoyable, right? Because but I am seeing that same thing that I noticed from having taught high school is the great pleasure of seeing the fruit of your labor years down the pike be productive members of society. It's you ever see that movie Being There?
Yes.
The gardener?
Yes.
I feel like the gardener.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yes. So, well, it's a little like raising children, or how I think of raising children. That's all I really want to accomplish is if I can raise him to be to a productive member of society.
Right. So I see my former students on LinkedIn or Facebook, and I see what they're doing, and it just gives me this great sense of pride that I can say to myself, yeah, I taught that child something.
Yep. I was part of that.
Yeah.
I was part of that. I went to UVA undergrad, and a gentleman here in town that I go to church with taught high school for years and years and years. He's retired now. But one of his students, Jim Ryan, is president of UVA now. And so I'll send my friend John the letter that he writes in the monthly magazine, the alumni magazine. And President Ryan has come back to this high school and spoken at graduation and done different things. And he's written a book called Wait, What? The 5 Important Questions that people should ask. So that's, sort of an idea. Like, not everybody that you teach gets to be president of a university, but for my friend John, this has been lovely. Is there anything you wish you had known when you began your career as a law librarian that you would want to share with people who are embarking on this path?
I ended up in administration, and let's be candid for a second. I ended up in administration because, you move up the ladder and that's where the good salaries are. Let's just be candid. Okay. The best job that I've ever had, bar none, was being that foreign competitive and international law librarian at LSU. I loved that job. It was so great. I was working with the Center for Civil Law Studies. I was working with these brilliant people, world-class scholars. And, I was helping with their research. I was helping with their writing. One of the professors at LSU, Professor Alain Levasseur, took me under his wing. I co-wrote a book with him about one of the writers of the Civil Code of 1808. And that was so wonderful. And, in hindsight, I wish I could have stayed being a FCIL librarian at LSU, right? Yep. But I have a cat to feed, and I had to move up the pike and go up into administration. I'm going to pat myself in the back, humble brag. I think that I am a good administrator because I have a lot of experience as a Marine officer in leadership.
Right.
And I think that leadership is what makes the difference. I don't manage, I lead. And that's always been my mantra. I don't manage, I lead.
Right.
But I wish somebody had told me that administration wasn't as much fun as being a reference librarian. Okay.
Well, I want to thank you for your service. You probably hear this all the time. My father was career Army.
Yes.
So we were not a Marine family, but we were a military family. I'm an Army bred, and right. I know a little about the sacrifices. And like I wrote you a couple of weeks ago, once a Marine, always a Marine.
I was a Marine. Thank you.
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate it. It's service and it's meaningful, but it's nice to know that people appreciate it. So thank you
my
very
God.
much.
We do. Probably not too many people say it, but we really do. Daniel found that quote for me. It was Archimedes. Who said this, but you were right. It was early on, much earlier than Newton. And what he said was, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world."
There we go. That's excellent.
So that is pretty cool. And I would say that teachers and administrators and leaders do this, move the world by educating people. And I thank you.
Thank you
for that.
You so much.
It's my pleasure. Is there anything else that you would like to say that I haven't thought to ask about? Or
I really enjoyed this very much. This was a great chance to speak with you. It's a great chance to see you. I'm sorry that we didn't see you at Georgia this year, but maybe next time.
I was sorry not to be there. Yeah, I was in Richmond, and then I missed Cleveland. Where was it last year? This year it was in Atlanta.
This year?
Oh, Lexington. It was. Lexington. I missed the one. I missed Lexington, and I missed Atlanta
as well. Yeah.
And now Daniel has reminded me when I met you 2 years ago. So it was March of 2023 when we were at the SEAL conference in Richmond, and we got to talking about cars because I'm a fan and my husband was a mechanic. And you sent me a video, and I have not been able to find it recently, although I watch it periodically. Model A or Model T?
Model T.
Okay, can you tell the story about this video?
This is a place in Central Florida. It's like a big fairground, and it's this club of people that are very much into the technology of the world as it was in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they have a little village and you can walk around and they have different demonstrations of machinery as it was used in the early development of the technological world, right? Steam, all these things. And so one of the great things that they do there is that they have a group of people, they come on, they drive onto this field with a Model T pickup, and there's 4 or 5 guys, they jump out of the truck and they go at it with wrenches and they take the truck apart and they put it back together. I mean, they take it completely apart. They put it back together, and then they drive off the field. And this takes less than 3 minutes. I'm always fascinated by that because I would love to be able to do something like that, but I would hurt myself.
No, it's a wonderful video. Vicenç, I'm so grateful that you took the time, that you were interested and enthusiastic about this, and we love that you promoted it ahead of time. We hope you'll do more afterward, and we will do the same.
Absolutely. We'll do.
Okay.
I will definitely promote it, and I'm really happy that you had me on here as a guest, and, I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you very much. Same here.
Thanks for listening to The Practicing Law Librarian. Be sure to subscribe and listen to our latest episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. And to learn more about the Practicing Law Institute, please visit pli.edu. To learn more about PLI Plus, which provides electronic access to the full collection of PLI Press publications, and schedule a demo with a member of our team, please visit pli.edu/plus. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast represent those of the individuals being interviewed and not necessarily those of PLI.